The job market for software engineers is the worst it's been in a really long time. Despite a strong stock market, companies have been slow to hire, and a quick search on LinkedIn will show that most open roles require at least 2 years of experience. My name is Catherine, and in this video, I want to talk about why that is and give you guys some data that suggests maybe the market is actually starting to turn around. During the beginning of 2024, top tech companies such as Salesforce, Amazon, and Microsoft laid off a combined total of 25,000 employees. On Reddit, there are now tons of posts from people who say they've just completely given up on even trying to find a tech job after literally years of trying, which is something that I've never really encountered before. I've also seen firsthand how the job market has shifted against job seekers. Let's briefly rewind to 2021. This was a year after the pandemic began and people were just starting to settle into the new normal. Stay-at-home mandates were common and the prevalence of working from home and doing basically everything from home shot up. This meant that people were online a lot more, which boosted the profits and share prices of tech companies such as Peloton and Zoom. On top of that, very low interest rates meant that money was cheap to borrow, and so companies took advantage of this and adopted a growth at all costs mentality. They were overhiring and blowing money on lavish perks and crazy moonshot ideas. There are even rumors that Meta hired engineers to do literally nothing simply because they wanted to keep the talent from going to other companies like Google. Very sneaky. During this time, I remember myself and all of my peers from the industry were getting offers even beyond our own expectations. I think this was the time where everyone and their grandma was saying, oh, I got a $300,000 total compensation package. If we look at this chart here, which is from Indeed.com, you can see that there is a sharp peak right around the spring of 2022. My own employer was onboarding 5 to 7 new employees a month, and if I remember correctly, there was probably more than that leaving each month because everybody was getting offers left, right, and center. Looking back now, that time was a complete gold rush, and it felt like it would never come to an end. And I think we're a little naive to think that way. Just like how I don't believe the downturn that we're going through right now is going to last forever either. Fast forward to 2022, and the tides have completely turned. Interest rates are much higher, which means venture capital funding is a lot harder to come by. Companies are tightening the belt and stopped investing in these risky moonshot ideas and instead diverted that money towards more of the boring but surefire revenue generators that are going to provide a reliable return on investment. I have a few friends in the industry who were working on these cool experimental projects that had the potential to eventually be widely adopted and bring in lots of revenue for their existing company and help the existing company move into new market segments. But eventually, they were all moved back into just maintaining the legacy system and doing boring work, but that work was profitable and it helped keep the lights on. I've definitely noticed more of a trend in the tech industry from simply just growth at all cost mentality to more focus on efficiency and driving profit. If you think about it, people are kind of the same way. When you've got a tighter budget, you're going to be less inclined to experiment with new places, for example, try new restaurants. You're going to prioritize going to the same tried and true places because you are almost guaranteed a satisfactory experience. Tech companies really thought that people were going to stay at home forever and do everything virtually. Obviously, they turned out to be wrong. By the way, can we all agree that virtual get-togethers and happy hours absolutely suck and just feels like another Zoom meeting at this point? We pretended they were fun for like 2 weeks at the beginning of the pandemic, but let's be honest, they don't compare to the real thing. Right around this time, tech companies such as Peloton saw a massive dip in their share prices after it became clear that the pandemic wasn't going to last forever and people would rather bike outside. So, what does this mean for the job market and software engineers? Well, as you saw earlier, increased layoffs and hiring freezes. Like I mentioned earlier, since there's a lot less money flowing around and companies are more risk averse, they're less inclined to take a bet on a new grad that might require a lot of mentorship and a lot of ramp up time, and they'd rather spend that money on a senior that is more of a sure bet. Looking at this chart from the pragmatic engineer, it seems like new graduates face a much tougher competition than senior level engineers. There is always the most amount of competition at the bottom, same with any other industry, but this might be exacerbated by the fact that companies are less able to mentor new grads remotely, and there's a ton of people who either went to boot camps and entered computer science majors during the gold rush of 2022. I see so many people on Reddit and on Twitter asking, hey, when is the market going to recover? Does anyone have any idea or any predictions on when the jobs are going to come back again? People are understandably really nervous, especially the new grads, and they are all looking for reassurance from strangers on the internet. But the truth is, no one knows. No one can tell you when the jobs are going to come back. If they claim to be able to look into the future and give you the exact date the market's going to recover and all the jobs are going to come back again, they're just lying to you in order to get clicks. Regardless of whether or not the market will recover, you want to be prepared by learning new skills and polishing your existing ones. Today's sponsor, Brilliant, offers the perfect resources to help you with that. Whether you're trying to brush up on your computer science fundamentals or algorithms and data structures, or trying something new like creative coding, Brilliant offers a fun and interactive way of learning these and thousands of other topics in as little as 10 minutes. I've recently been very interested in refreshing my knowledge of math because, hey, in this economy, you want to be up to speed on as many skills as possible. And I've been taking the foundational math course on Brilliant, and it's been going great so far. I've been spending my time brushing up on my logic skills, and the interactive lessons and guides are way better than how I learned this growing up. You're rewarded with daily streaks, and I'll be honest, this keeps me checking back daily and looking forward to new lessons added monthly. If you're interested in learning more, Brilliant has partnered with me to offer a free 30-day trial so that you can try some of these lessons on your own. In addition, the first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual plan. To get started, visit brilliant.org/Catherine Lee. So, like I said, there are some signs that the market might be starting to recover, and we have a reason to be optimistic. First things first, layoffs are down. They are way down, and they're almost at the pre-peak levels. So if you look at this chart, according to layoffs.fyi, tech employee layoffs have come down 70% from the peak. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that there were quite a lot of layoffs at the beginning of this year, 2024, but that's pretty typical of most companies since they want to wait until after the holidays to deliver the bad news. With the exception of the beginning of 2024, we can see that there's been a steady decline of layoffs throughout 2023, so let's hope for the trend to continue into 2024. An online mock interview platform called Interviewing.io has been kind enough to provide us with this chart, which I'm going to link in the description box below. They're not sponsoring this video, by the way. The lighter dotted line shows the number of open tech jobs pulled from data from TrueUp.io, and the solid dark line shows the number of mock interview purchases made on Interviewing.io. You guys can see that the two lines are very closely correlated, which makes sense since people are going to pay for mock interviews right before they're about to get interviewed. A couple of conclusions we can draw from this. 1. There will likely be more open jobs in 2024, as suggested by the fact that there are more people purchasing mock interviews. And we can see on this chart that the mock interview purchases seems to be a leading indicator of future job openings. The two lines are very closely correlated, but the mock interview purchases are slightly ahead of the job openings. If you're actively searching for a job right now and you are a software engineer, please comment down below and let me know if you're seeing this trend as well. Have you guys been noticing more roles being posted over the last few months, or has it been just dead silence? Let me know down below. So, what are my thoughts on all of this job market data? I think it is tougher right now to find a job as a software engineer, especially as a junior, but I think this is really exaggerated on social media like LinkedIn, Reddit, Twitter. But we have to keep in mind, for the sake of our mental health, that negative news tends to to circulate a lot wider and quicker than positive news, right? So if there's layoffs, that tends to make the headlines. And keep in mind that people who have found jobs and people who are happy aren't the ones posting on LinkedIn and Reddit. This is why every time you go to those social media platforms, all you see is negative news, because it is the unhappy people that have an incentive to post. If you're happy at your job, or if you found a job easily, there's no reason for you to be posting anything, right? So just keep that in mind, because I feel like social media really paints a negative picture. It's not easy, but this is not helping, right? The social media is definitely not helping give you a realistic picture of what the job market looks like. So for the sake of your mental health, maybe just log off and stop reading all of that. I also wonder if the reason we're all so freaking out over this downturn is because it immediately followed such a high peak in 2022, and it just quickly crashed down into essentially pre-peak levels. The layoff numbers, as I've shown earlier, are the same as pre-22 levels, but we're still freaking out because of the contrast. We were at such a high and we're back down to baseline. So even though the same jobs as pre-2022, we're just feeling that gap. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that one of the most devastating side effects of constant rejection is the toll it takes on your confidence. So if you're struggling to find a job in this market, just take some relief in knowing that you are not the only one and it's not necessarily your fault. Sure, there are maybe things you can do to improve your chances, but your higher rates of rejection isn't really a sign of personal shortcoming. It's because of things outside of your control, like market conditions. I've seen a lot of cases on LinkedIn where the candidate was very much qualified for the role they were interviewing for, but because the candidate pool is now a lot deeper, the hiring manager simply went with someone with more years of experience. So if you're worried about getting laid off, or you're in the unfortunate position of already being laid off, what can we do in this job market? That is the topic of my next video, so stay tuned. I will see you later. Bye-bye.